I need to choose a camera angle. I really do. Hi, my name is David, and I have nobody in my life to talk about music to. That's why today I want to talk to myself about the new Courtney Barnett album, Tell Me How You Really Feel. Courtney Barnett is an Australian rocker who in 2015 came out with her debut album, Sometimes I Sit and Think and Sometimes I Just Sit. I really love that album title, but I always have to really think about it. I think I own it over there. So, I thought the record was great. I loved Courtney Barnett's delivery on her vocals. I loved the music. It was just full of fun tunes. I think it really kind of lacked on some more serious tones, but I really enjoyed it. Also that year, she was nominated, I think, for Best New Artist, and I think she was up against Chance the Rapper, so there was just zero chance she was gonna win. But Courtney last year had a project with Kurt Vile, Lotta Sea Lice, and I was pumped for this album, man. I love Courtney Barnett, I love Kurt Vile, and I was 100% sure this album was gonna be great. I was pumped for it. I bought tickets to go see them live, and when it finally dropped, I was really disappointed in it. It really diluted the best of Kurt Vile's sound and the best of Courtney's sound into something that just wasn't either of them. Love the fact that they were best buds. Honestly, the album live was so much better than what was recorded, but yeah, I went into this latest record really nervous, because the last one she put out and where I potentially saw her music going, I just didn't like it. I thought it was just kind of diluting her sound with what Kurt Vile was already doing so well. Fast forward to her singles dropping, her doing a bunch of interviews on this album, and again, I actually got pretty excited again, because my main complaint about her debut album, of the lack of a serious tone on some of the album, was gone. She was going to make a much more serious record. She said she was just taking on a lot of darker tones, and she was just going to be a little bit more angry or a little bit in your face, and you could tell just by the album's name that she was going to do so. But again, when this album dropped and I finally gave it a couple listens, and I've been listening to it all week, something's just missing from this album. Musically in this album, I can see where she was going for. I was really loving some of the singles, but when the album finally dropped, it felt again like she was diluting a little bit of her sound with some of the things she picked up from Kurt Vile. And I'm just not sold on it, especially the back half of this album. I feel drags a little bit, and her last album kind of dragged toward the end, but not nearly as bad as this. I felt like every song started rolling on top of each other, and after the midway point of the album, on repeat listens, I would just stop, because there was nothing special for me on the back half of this album. Now, that saying, there's a lot of songs on this album I do like, primarily the singles. I think Nameless Faceless is just a fantastic song. It really delves into these crazy gender dynamics they have of Courtney throwing out imagery of her, having to hold her keys between her fingers to, basically attack someone if someone comes after her, and guys just being a little afraid if they get embarrassed or something like that. I loved the themes. I loved her delivery on this album. It still had her very nonchalant way of delivering her vocals, but it still had the Courtney Barnett tongue-in-cheek charm, and I loved that. It's a fantastic song. It's the one I'm going to be going to a lot. Another song I loved on this album was Need a Little. Lyrically, it's about needing a lot of space in a relationship, and it sounds in the album like she's arguing with someone, and she's just like, I need a little time from you, and I need a little bit of time from me. And I love that duality in the song of needing for herself to just have a little time out for her own head, because Tell Me How You Really Feel, the title applies to both herself and to others in this album. Her frustration of not understanding herself, but also the frustration of not really understanding others and what they are saying to her. And I think Need a Little is the best track to exemplify that theme on the the other singles, City Looks Pretty, again, really easy tune, just great listening. It reminds me like anything from her last album. I think you could pluck it from her last album, put it on this one, and it would feel, or the other way around. I feel like you could pluck it from this album, put it on her last album, and it would fit perfectly. A song that I'm unsure of is the one after Nameless Faceless, I'm Not Your Mother. Again, I loved the harshness, the tones that she was bringing out through this song, but she doesn't spend any time in it. It's like in a minute and a half, it's under 2 minutes. I think it's like a minute 50, something like that. She has all this anger, and it's coming through on the guitars, it's coming through in her vocals, and she just lets it out super quick and lets it go. And it just didn't feel right. It felt like she was really starting to get uncomfortable with herself in this song, and exactly when she did, she stopped. I wish she would have pushed it harder, especially since the back half of this album kind of drags, you know? This album isn't long. It's like 35, it's under 40 minutes long, and she could have taken parts from other songs and really put some more time into this one. I think the opening track in particular is just kind of drags on. I feel like I'm complaining a lot about this album, and I think it's not because any particular song is really bad. They really aren't. A lot of this album is really easy to listen to, and you can get through it pretty quickly because it's short. The problem with this album is it's really forgettable for me. What's missing from this album that worked so well with her last album was a touch of lightheartedness. I was super excited for the fact that this album was gonna take a darker tone, but in doing so, she lost some of her lighthearted, down-to-earth, tongue-in-cheek way of songwriting that isn't really apparent here at all. And she does get pretty honest on this album. I love her honest, endearing take on relationship, but there's just no shining moments. There's a couple songs that I really love, but I don't think there's anything special here. And that's kind of hard to say because I really love Courtney Barnett, and if you ever have a chance to see her live, I think this is going to be just like her last album. It's going to be a lot better to see live. So that's how I really feel about this album. How do you really feel about this album? I think I need to cut that out. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts on this album. Love to know what you think of this darker take that Courtney's going into. And yeah, that's it.